Have you ever felt mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually exhausted, but you're trying to keep it all together because you're trying to be Superwoman. You're trying to be everything to everybody because everybody depends on you. But you don't have time to deal with all the emotions, all the thoughts, and you keep on pushing it back until you can't push it back anymore. And you have to deal with it, but you don't know how. Before you know it, your heart, your mind, every fiber of your being is crying out that something has got to change. This was me about 3 years ago. I was at my wit's end, trying to deal with the depression and anxiety and all the other thoughts that were plaguing me day in and day out. And that is when God showed up in a really big way. In just a minute, I'll share my story. Welcome to Worth It, the podcast where we answer anxiety, deflate fear, and shut down shame, because ain't no woman got time for that. You were made to thrive. My mission is to help you get deeply rooted with God and reclaim your weapon that the enemy of God has been using against you. After going to battle for my own mind 3 years ago, I realized that there is a war going on for our minds, a battle that begins with how we think. I'm Michelle Remington, Christian mindset coach, thought strategist, and warrior mama. Sis, you have much more control than you realize. With each episode, you'll learn how to fight back and become more confident in the truth that God already knows. You are worth it. Hey there, warrior woman. Welcome back. No, what are you doing? No, don't look around. I'm talking to you. You are the warrior woman. You may not feel like it right now, but that's all right, because you have inside you a warrior that is waiting to be unleashed. And yes, I went with the whole kind of like cliche warrior woman thing, but you know what? When a woman sets her mind to something, when a woman is confident of who she is and what she can do, she really embodies that warrior. I want to thank you for joining me on this podcast today. So this is the very first podcast of Worth It. So thank you so much for joining me. Now, before I get into today's episode and sharing more about myself, I do want to say that in honor of our first podcast, we have a giveaway. Oh, I know your ears just perked up, didn't they? That's all right. Mine do too. Every time I hear a giveaway, I'm like, what? It's kind of like when somebody mentions coffee, you know. So the giveaway, very first one is going to be a Google Nest Mini speaker. So you can listen to the Worth It podcast on there. What? Yeah. I just went there, but that's okay. So that is going to be our giveaway. And what I'm going to have you do to enter in to that is write a review, hopefully a 5-star review. And with that review, go ahead and take a screenshot of that and then share that on Instagram. And you can tag me at I am Michelle Remington. I'll also have that information somewhere in the description of this podcast, so you have that as well. And in a week, I will go ahead and do a random drawing of all those that have entered and draw a lovely winner. Yes. Now, without further ado, today I want to share with you my testimony of where I was to where God brought me, to how my journey started in overcoming all of that overwhelm, that exhaustion, the shame, the guilt that you have sometimes, the doubt, the anxiety, like all that ugly stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because there is a way out, and God can make a way where there seems to be no way. Yeah, I know you're going to have that song probably stuck in your head now, but that's okay. Let me give you a little background on myself to begin with. My name is Michelle Remington, and I am totally excited to meet you. I'm a former Christian radio host or DJ, which is probably where a lot of the song references are going to come from. I guess that's a disclaimer. Anyway, so former DJ turned stay-at-home mom. This is after all the crazy excitement of becoming pregnant after 10 years of trying for a child. And then after experiencing postpartum depression, God showed up in a major way. And I am excited to share that story. But through the journey, God really showed me different tools and strategies and things that I could do to combat everything that the enemy was throwing at me, using my own thoughts against me, all kinds of crazy stuff. Because you are not stuck where you are. You have power over your thoughts, and I'm going to help you. So without further ado, this is my story. I remember I was sitting in a dark room, surrounded by thousands of people, struggling to keep it together. What would happen if anyone found out about the dark secret I was hiding? Would they ridicule me, scorn me, call me a hypocrite? What if my job found out? Would they fire me or humiliatingly demote me? Or my church or my family? What I feared most is that they would confirm every horrible thing I already thought about myself. With this secret, my entire life could come crashing down. I mean, it would be better if they all kept believing the highlight reel I presented as my life. I had a dream job as a DJ, a loving husband, and God had blessed us with a child after 10 years of trying. If they knew the truth, they would think that I was selfish, undeserving, and worthless. I know I did. It caught me off guard. I was supposed to have it all together. Stuff like this doesn't happen to people like me. People look up to me. My life is supposed to be perfect, right? What if they knew I was really a hypocrite? Here I was, day after day, encouraging people, telling them to rely on God, don't give up, hold on, when I had already given up, and all I wanted to do was kill myself. There were days when I was barely holding on by a thread. And on this particular day, in that dark auditorium, I felt like such an imposter. The radio station I worked at was sponsoring the band for King and Country in concert. I played my part. I smiled. I greeted people. I helped out where I was needed. I even went the hypocrite mile and posted a pic with the band on Facebook saying, I love my job. I mean, in hindsight, I posted things like that because I was trying to believe that everything would be okay. All the while, every alarm was sounding off in my head, and I was silently panicking. So when I was finally able to go into the auditorium and enjoy the concert, I sat in the dark, trying to forget about the battle that was raging inside my head, if only for just a few minutes. It was in this few minutes, though, that Luke started introducing a song that he had written during a difficult time in his life. And I remember hearing the lyrics, I don't want to live without you. And tears started streaming down my face. It was like my husband was pleading with me. And in my mind, I saw his face and my daughter, who God had surely blessed us with after 10 long years. In the midst of my tears is when God showed up. He spoke to me audibly, and he declared, I have made you for so much more. It was like he had pried open the door to the dungeon that I had built for myself and shone his light where I had let darkness hold dominion for far too long. For the first time in over a year, I felt real, undeniable hope. I decided right then and there that I was going to find out what that so much more was. I was setting out on a journey with God to discover His truth about me and find out what I was made of. And this journey has been the most rewarding, painful, and valuable thing that I have ever done in my life. God has equipped me with His word, strategies, tools, and truths that have helped me overcome that crazy emotional roller coaster and take every thought captive. It is my sincere hope that together with God, this podcast will help you understand that you are not a prisoner of your thoughts. In fact, you're already equipped to start this journey. Now, along the way, we're going to deal with some tough subjects. And just remember, there is absolutely no shame in getting counseling. And if you're having thoughts about self-harm or suicide, I urge you to seek help from a mental health professional. You are so valuable, and you are worth the effort to reclaim your mind. I want to thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for listening. As you heard, God showed up in a major way, and God can show up in a major way in your life. And that, my friend, is what this podcast is all about. I want you to find out and to realize that you are worth it. You are worth the effort. You are worth the fight. You are worth the journey. Your story is a victory in the making. Hear that, know that, trust that. The journey may be rough at times, but we're going to have fun along the way, and we're going to learn as much as we possibly can. Now, as a reminder from the beginning of the podcast, we do have a special giveaway in honor of our first podcast, and that is a Google Nest Mini in gray color. And you can enter to win that by doing a review, hopefully a 5-star one. Take a screenshot of that and then share that with me on Instagram at I am Michelle Remington. And in a week, I'm going to go ahead and draw a random winner of that prize. And I want to invite you to join me on my Facebook group. It's the Worth It Podcast Facebook group. And there you're going to find a lot of supplemental information to the podcast episodes that you hear. There's also going to be videos and maybe some like tutorials on some things that I mentioned. That's where you're going to be able to get all that content, and it's free. You can join me on that group, and you're going to be surrounded by a community of women that have been where you are where you are, and know what you're going through. They understand you. We pray together. We love on each other. We speak life to each other. That is what we do in the Worth It community. So I want to invite you to join me on there. It is my goal to give as much as I possibly can so that you can grow as much as you possibly can. Thank you for joining me for the Worth It podcast. Until next time, remember, you were made for so much more.